Since the first World Championship in 1950, there have been many rivalries between the F1 drivers, and it's safe to say that some have been fair fights, while others have been full of drama. But in the end, only the best driver came out on top and won the World Championships. So sit back and relax as we list the top 10 F1 rivalries of all time. Starting off with Lewis Hamilton vs Nico Rosberg at number 10. Even though Rosberg had more experience with the team, Hamilton finished ahead of him in their first season together in 2013. But things got more intense when the title was on the line. In 2016, Rosberg did everything he could to compete with Hamilton, causing problems within the team that only a few people know about, along with some bad starts from Hamilton and some unreliability on the Britain side of the garage. This was just enough for Rosberg to win the title in a close race in Abu Dhabi. In the 4 years they were teammates, Hamilton got 1,334 points, while Rosberg got 1,195. But that wasn't enough to stop Rosberg from winning the 2016 championship by 5 points. Interestingly, Rosberg surprised everyone by announcing his retirement after reaching his goal, and that bothered Hamilton, who couldn't get his revenge on his former teammate, followed by Alan Jones vs Nelson Piquet at number 9. In 1980 and 1981, Jones and Piquet were often the drivers to win the races, but while Jones had 5 wins to Piquet's 3, they ended up in a fight at the Canadian GP, the second to last race of the year, and this caused a lot of controversies. But in 1981, Jones's bad luck and an occasional mistake made his teammate Carlos Reutemann Piquet the biggest threats in the points. Jones and Piquet still had time to cause trouble. After an argument at Zolder, Jones closed in on race leader Piquet at the Monaco GP, which caused the Brabham to crash into the barriers. This led to the Brazilian's first title win before he shocked everyone by quitting F1. It's safe to say that this ended in a rivalry that would have continued into 1982. Up next, at number 8, we have Jim Clark versus Graham Hill. Clark and his Lotus 25 usually set the pace in 1962, but Hill and the BRM P57 were more reliable and won the championship in South Africa. In the final race, Clark lost due to a mechanical problem, and Hill crashed into Lorenzo Bandini. Clark and Lotus were still mostly out of reach in 1965, but Hill won the Monaco and US GPs for the 3rd straight year, and in 1967, Hill joined Clark at Lotus. Clark then went on to win 4 races in the new Cosworth DFV-powered 49, but Hill didn't win any. This doesn't show how competitive Hill was though. He won 3 poles and led 6 races compared to Clark's 6, but bad luck and unreliability kept Hill from finishing first. Moving on, at number 7, Lewis Hamilton vs Max Verstappen. Most fights between F1 star Lewis Hamilton and up-and-comer Max Verstappen are just small skirmishes. They weren't playing the same game either, as Verstappen was trying to win with Red Bull while Hamilton was aiming for the World Championship. But the few technical changes made for 2021 evened the playing field between the two teams, causing them to fight for the title. When racing against the aggressive Verstappen, Hamilton usually ensured that both cars stayed in the race, but at the British GP, he changed his strategy, which caused his rival to hit the wall and then be taken to the hospital. And the 2022 season was no less significant for their rivalry. Verstappen again beat him to win the Drivers' Championship, while Hamilton struggled to regain his form since Mercedes faced the porpoising issue at Baku. What's more, Lewis Hamilton vs Fernando Alonso at number 6. They shared the same points at the end of 2007 season, but Hamilton won because he finished second more frequently than his teammate. But after joining McLaren from Renault, Alonso didn't get the number 1 treatment he had hoped for, causing tension within the team. At the Hungarian GP, things got heated. Hamilton didn't let Alonso pass on the track as planned, so Alonso waited in the pits long enough to keep Hamilton from getting a final run. Alonso was also involved in the McLaren-Ferrari Spygate scandal, and his relationship with the team bosses got so bad that he left for Renault in 2008. In 2010, Alonso joined Ferrari, and Hamilton and Jenson Button joined McLaren. And over the next 3 years, Alonso and Hamilton had a lot of success. But since 2014, Hamilton has always been running for the championship with Mercedes, while Alonso has struggled with uncompetitive Ferraris and McLarens. Coming up next is Michael Schumacher vs Damon Hill at number 5. Schumacher won on his return to racing at the European GP, but Hill did a great job of winning the wet Japanese GP, closing behind a 1-point gap before the final race in Australia. But went down in Adelaide. When Hill wanted to surpass his rival, Schumacher turned in, and the resulting crash put Benetton into the barriers. But the Williams was too damaged to continue, so Schumacher won the race. In 1995, Schumacher and Benetton were too strong for Hill and Williams, but the Briton still won 4 GPs and finished second in the driver's table. Then Schumacher joined a team that wasn't doing very well in 1996, so Hill took the world title from Jacques Villeneuve, and after that, Hill was rarely in a position to fight the ever-improving Schumacher Ferrari Ferrari axis with arrows and then Jordan. Not to forget the epic rivalry between James Hunt and Niki Lauda at number 4. Hunt won his first GP for the World Championship at the 1975 Dutch GP by avoiding Lauda's Ferrari, but that season was mostly about Lauda winning his first world title. Still, the drama continued throughout the season. Hunt was disqualified from winning in Spain, but the decision was soon overturned as he was handed the win. Then came the German GP at Nürburgring, as Lauda's near-fatal crash gave Hunt more momentum and burned Lauda's face. Yep, we've all seen that movie, but when Lauda made his incredible comeback for the Italian GP, Hunt had closed the gap. 2 straight wins in Canada and the US meant that the McLaren driver was only 3 points behind in the final race in Japan. Lauda dropped out of the race because the weather was bad, and Hunt took full advantage of that. And after a late pit stop, Hunt made a miraculous comeback to finish 3rd and win the championship by 1 point. Now, let's look at number 3, Michael Schumacher versus Mika Hakkinen. In 1998, the speed of the McLaren MP413 seemed to be out of reach for everyone, but Schumacher and Ferrari fought back to make it close. Schumacher then took the race for the championship to the final round at Suzuka, but he stalled on the pole, and Hakkinen won the race and the championship. But in the 1999 season, Schumacher broke his leg at Silverstone, and after missing 6 races, he returned to help teammate Eddie Irvine win the championship. In 2000, Schumacher and Ferrari finally won the championship, and the title was decided in a race at Suzuka that the German later called the best race of his life. But the Schumacher-Ferrari steamroller just kept getting stronger after that. Hakkinen had 2 good wins in 2001, but bad luck and a lack of motivation kept him from winning the championship. At the end of the season, he quit Formula 1. Not to mention, at number 2, Nigel Mansell versus Nelson Piquet. Piquet won the 1986 Hungarian Grand Prix and the 1987 Italian Grand Prix, with technical advantages that he didn't share with his teammate Mansell. But after a huge crash during practice for the San Marino GP, Piquet was never the same, and Mansell had the upper hand for most of 1987. And even though Mansell won 6 times to Piquet's 3, he didn't win the championship. The matter was then settled in the Brazilian's favor when his teammate hurt his back in a qualifying crash at the Japanese GP. But there was one last race for the win at the 1990 Australian GP, and after a hard but fair fight, Piquet beat a charging Mansell for one of his best wins. Even though they were rivals, Mansell and Piquet generally kept things clean and on track, unlike the top pair on this list. Finally, at number 1, we have Alain Prost versus Ayrton Senna. The tussle between Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost is the fiercest, most controversial, and most well-known in Formula 1 history. Senna won his first World Championship Grand Prix in 1985, the same year that Prost won his first world title. But the real competition began when Senna joined Prost at McLaren in 1988, before the 1989 Japanese Grand Prix. Prost, who had already decided to join Ferrari in 1990, said he wouldn't move out of the way anymore. And when Senna dove to the inside at the last chicane, he turned in, resulting in a crash that kicked Prost out of the race. But Senna got back on the track, took a pit stop, and won, only to be disqualified. And after a lot of fighting, Prost was named the world champion, which helped Ferrari maintain their position. But when Senna crashed into Prost at high speed at the Japanese GP to win the title, he ruined what had been mostly a great title race. And the fight between the 2 drivers continued into the next season. That's all for this video. What are your thoughts on the list? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content in the future. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.